This book is called Raphael's Gift. It was written by Barbara A. Donovan. Illustrations were all done by Bradley Clark. And the action takes place in the Dominican Republic, La República Dominicana. That's the flag of the Dominican Republic. This is a map of the country. Santo Domingo, the capital, is right here. And now you are ready for this story. El Caribe is a real newspaper published in Santo Domingo. This is a current edition. This is the website that you see right here, where you can look up modern editions of it. And this paragraph is an introduction to the story. At the time of this story, a new president was in charge of the Dominican Republic. This president changed the laws. People could no longer speak freely against the government. Newspapers, such as El Caribe, could only print what the government wanted them to print. German Ornes believed strongly in a free press. He fought against the rules that restricted what he and others could print. Streaks of pink, lavender, and orange shimmered on waters reflecting a dazzling sunset. In Rafael Garcia's mind, he knew just how he would paint the sunset if he had the paper on which to paint it. Lack of paper tormented Rafael. He'd used up every scrap his family could spare for his drawings. As a result, Rafael painted pictures in his mind, hoping for the day when he'd have enough paper to paint all his memories. As the colors darkened in the sky, Rafael realized how late it had become. He grabbed his net bag, which was bursting with the conch he had harvested from the seafloor, and raced along the meandering path to his home. Mami was cutting tomatoes and onions for the conch stew when Rafael arrived home. "Your father is out at the beach waiting for you," Mommy called as Rafael appeared at the screen door. "Go, help him clean the conch. There's a surprise for you out there, too," she said with a warm smile. Rafael headed out back to where he could see his father and another man sitting in the shade. As Rafael surveyed the scene, he began to grin. "Tío Germán," he called excitedly to his father's best friend. Rafael loved this family friend, whom he called his uncle. He was proud of the way he led the fight for free speech in their country. That Tío Germán was visiting his father was a rare delight for the entire family. Rafael emptied the conch onto the bench and began working with his father to separate the sweet, juicy conch meat from its hard shell. Tío Germán questioned Rafael about school and about his baseball team. Then he inquired, "Do you know, I still have that painting you made for me? It's hanging on the wall of my office. It helps me remember the beauty and innocence of my island home." Rafael blushed with pride. He had painted a scene of a boy on a beach with his arms spread wide open as if to hug the world. He had given it to Tío Germán for his birthday last year. He did not know that his father's friend had actually hung it in his office. "What have you painted recently, Rafael?" Tío Germán asked. Rafael gazed down at his lap and replied, "Nothing lately, Tío Germán." "Do you not like to paint anymore?" asked Tío Germán with concern in his voice. Oh, yes, Tío Germán." Rafael hurriedly reassured him, "But I do not have any paper." Tío Germán leaned back in his chair and smiled. "Then you might just want to take a look in the back seat of my car when you bring this conch Back up to your mother. There's a present for you in a brown box. Raphael beamed as he thanked Tio Herman for the gift he had yet to see. Then he scooped all the conch meat into a bowl and excused himself. Mommy barely had time to thank him for such quick work before Raphael was out the door, headed for Tio Herman's car. One time, Tio Herman had brought Raphael an end roll of paper from his workplace at El Caribe. As the newspaper was printed, the workers would change the rolls of paper before they reached the end of the roll. Tio Herman had thought that Raphael might want to use the paper that his pressmen would throw out. Was it possible that Tio Herman had brought Raphael another roll of paper this time? When Raphael reached the black car sitting in the shade of the grigri tree, he peeked into the back window where he saw a large carton. Raphael leaned into the back seat. His hand hovered over the carton. What if this were not paper after all? Eventually, Raphael maneuvered the carton from the car. When he slid open the top, he stumbled back because inside were not one, but 5 end rolls of paper. Raphael had never so much paper in his life, never had so much before. The many images he'd saved in his mind jostled for attention. He didn't know which one to draw first. With a grunt, Raphael heaved the carton up onto his arms and ran into his room. He cut off one piece of paper and laid it tenderly on his table. Looking out the window, he could see his father and Tio Herman still talking outside. Raphael remembered stories his father had told him of the fun he and his friend had had in their youth. Making light strokes with his pencil, Raphael's fingers fairly danced across the paper. Subtle lines joined as forms took shape on the page. Soon, 2 figures emerged among the swirling lines. From a box under his bed, Raphael chose the colors he'd use to bring his sketch to life. By the time Mommy's conch stew was ready, Raphael's gift for Tio Herman was ready too. After stuffing themselves on stew, Mommy, Papi, and Tio Herman brought their coffee out onto the porch where they listened to merengue music on the radio. Raphael went to his room to get his drawing. Returning to the porch, he handed the completed drawing to his uncle. In it, 2 boys resembling Papi and Tio Herman frolicked in the surf as if they had not a care in the world. In one corner he had written, "To Tio Herman, with thanks for all you have done and will do for all of us. Rafael Garcia." Tio Herman wiped a tear that leaked from his eye. Then he nodded his thanks to the boy who could touch his heart and help him remember the best of times during the worst of times. The end. If you're the kind of reader who enjoys having a few questions to answer after a story, these questions are for you. Question number 1. What kind of paper did Tio Herman give to Raphael? Question number 2. If you could be any character in this story, which character would you be? Can you explain why? Question number 3. To Tio Herman, why was his youth the best of times and the present the worst of times? Question number 4. In what way or in what ways is Raphael like a character from another story that you've read? Question number 5. Why do you think Raphael painted the picture of his father and Tío Herman as boys at the beach instead of the sunset he had just seen? Well, this first question is one you can look back in the story and find. These other questions, you have to think about it. It's not easy to pick which the right answers are. So have fun with that. And then finally, if you've enjoyed these illustrations, beautiful watercolor paintings, here is the website for the illustrator and artist, Bradley Clark. The story from the Dominican Republic has been Raphael's Gift. The story was written by Barbara A. Donovan, and the illustrations were painted by Bradley Clark.